Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Got lots of good questions to unpack today, and our millennial decided to join us.
I'm
Finally.
here. It's all right. I know you guys can calm down. I'm here now. It's all right.
It's just not the same. It's not the same without you.
I figured it wasn't.
I do have to say you have more experience in the workforce than Gen Z does. So.
Yeah. That's you need me because I'm experienced.
All right, don't get too cocky.
Well, we have to start with introductions because that's what we do, right? So, Ashley, take it away.
All right, I'm Ashley. I am the Gen Zer.
And I'm Peter. I am the millennial, the Gen Wire. Is that it, Gen Wire?
Gen Wire, which no one calls you. I'm Pete, and I'm the Gen X, which is a surprise, I'm sure. So today we're completing something we started, 2 weeks ago, I think?
Yeah.
A Q&A session to answer questions that you have. What is pressing? What's on your mind? What can we do to deliver value to you guys who are out there when you maybe you should be doing something else, but you're instead with us here on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. And we're happy to be here. So more comments, the better. Give us questions on the fly if you have them. Otherwise, we'll take questions that carried over from a couple of weeks ago and things that were emailed to us. So I think we have a lot to talk about.
100%.
We've got a lot of questions to go through.
Yeah. So again, if you're just sitting at work and you're currently employed, but you have a pressing question, comment. All right, let's read some of the questions that we've been emailed. Let me go through our list. How can one manage and cope with job dissatisfaction or burnout?
Man, you know what? I have to give a plug to a friend of mine who I just interviewed. Actually, because did you post the podcast yet? Is it posted?
Yeah, podcast is live. Go check out the Finding Careers In podcast, our latest episode. Pete, take it away. What's it about?
It's about how to deal with burnout, strangely enough. So I didn't know that you were going to ask that question, or I would have been a little better prepared to answer it. But my interview is with Josh Hammonds, Dr. Josh Hammonds, who is a PhD in organizational communication. And he is putting out a new class that he put together on how to deal with the 4 different types of burnout. And I have to tell you guys, I didn't know there were 4 types. Did you?
No.
I thought there was just one type.
Yeah, I thought it was all the same.
And burnout is burnout, yeah.
Burnout is burnout until you find out it's not. And I don't want to take away from, first of all, I don't want to embarrass myself and try to translate what Josh said and knows in a much better way than I do. But there are 4 types of burnout. And you know what? This is a perfect excuse to have him come on as a guest, and we'll have him talk about it, because I think that would be important. And if I say it live and put it on video, then I think we're committing him to do it. And he said that he'd be happy to at some point anyway. So, Josh, we're coming for you to talk about burnout, but it's a serious thing and it's real. And one of the things that I will say that I learned yesterday from Josh, but it makes sense. It just helped put it in a different perspective for me. Something that I felt but didn't really understand. If there's not alignment of things, if like, for example, let's say that the company's stance on social policies is really important to you. Mm-hmm. And the company doesn't have a stance on social policies, right? We know that younger generations, in many cases, those kind of things are important, what they look for in an employer these days. Or if the company has a different stance than the one that's important to you, then it's not going to work, right? That's not something you can overcome by addressing, identifying, talking to your manager about. Those are things that just will never line up because it's just inherently not in sync. So you can't solve that kind of burnout if it exists. So I think that was my takeaway from the conversation with Josh yesterday. Was some things can be fixed, others can't. The goal in a perfect world is to identify whether there's potential for that in the interview process. And I think through good recruiting, good questions that are asked by the candidate, you can do that stuff. But don't sit on it. That was my other takeaway. So if you are feeling burned out, even if you don't know what words to use to describe it, go talk to your manager. Don't sit on problems. Don't be quietly unhappy. Go and address those things head on. So that's my my takeaway from yesterday.
I mean, that's really good. Like, obviously, we could have an entire show about stress management and stuff like that. You know, every job's gonna have its times where it's hard. But if you really care about your job, or you're really, you know, say it's a really difficult job, but you really like solving complex problems, and that's all your job is. While it's difficult, you have a higher threshold to not be burnt out because it's interesting. You know, it's not boring. So I think that's a good point, is being aligned with, you know, if you really you're really passionate about it, and you can be passionate about lots of things. It doesn't need to be like, you know, you're like, this is my dream job, but there's facets of your job that you really like doing. I think that helps a lot, you know, not getting misaligned, not getting assigned things that you're like, I don't want to do this to begin with. And that takes you down to kind of a route to being burnt out. So being really aware of that that's really good.
Yeah. And it goes beyond the physical. I mean, that's the thing that I was really surprised to learn yesterday.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm shocked that we're not getting anything in the comments. Again, if you are watching or just joining, comment and ask us questions. Is everyone burnt out? Lay it on us. If not, I'm going to continue reading some questions coming in from our email. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Okay, next one. And I think we can all go on a tangent about this one, but how crucial is having an online presence like LinkedIn in modern job searching?
I would probably say it's pretty crucial. Now, you could go say to varying degrees, but you got to have something. Like, unless you're the best in the world at some specific thing and nobody else can do it, like you got to be found. You should have a LinkedIn. You should have it filled out. You know, you should have try and comment on people's stuff. Try and have some stuff, you know, post it out there. I think it goes a really, really long way. So, I wouldn't say it's necessary. I'd say it's extremely beneficial.
I still say, I mean, I've learned how crucial it is. In the beginning, I learned how to use it in college. Everyone said, like, okay, make a LinkedIn account. This is going to be really important. You're going to get to network with important people who could possibly open doors for you. First, I was kind of just like, I don't know. Like, does this actually work? I just wasn't won over by it. And then eventually, like, after talking to fellow like classmates after graduation and after talking to people, I was like, wow, like there's a lot of benefits that come from having a LinkedIn profile.
I mean, it's never a bad thing to know more people, and LinkedIn just facilitates networking to like another degree. So it's never bad to be known. I guess that's my my takeaway on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie, for the comment. Feel free to add more as to why it's crucial. Always want to hear that input. But from I just made a comment this morning on one of the posts that we put on our company page that you have to be found, right? You can have a great resume. You can have a beautiful profile, wonderful experience, professional experience. But if no one can find you, then it doesn't matter. And LinkedIn is where the recruiters are. By default, if you don't post your resume on a job board, if you're not actively applying to jobs, you will be found just based on LinkedIn alone. So the question I'd ask for anyone is who hasn't taken that seriously is, why wouldn't you want to be found, right? I mean, you never know what great opportunity could come your way. And I won't tell the story that I told last week, but I've made new relationships just by being active on LinkedIn, including Josh, who I mentioned earlier. That was a LinkedIn connection, who we were connected by a third person who neither one of us know personally, but through comments and posts on LinkedIn, we met each other virtually, then met in person because he happens to be based in Central Florida where we are. And not only are we friends, but now we're working together on some different things. So there's so many different avenues that can come from that. Very, very powerful stuff.
It seems like it's one of those things that that's a mistake that I see a lot of people make. And this is even in my personal life. I know people don't care about LinkedIn or their job unless they need a job. Most people will only update their LinkedIn when they're looking for a job. And that's reactive thinking rather than being proactive. And B, like things take time. So if you're only doing things like that when you need a job, it's not going to be on the timeline that you got bills to pay, those types of things. I think that if you're happy at your job, you love your job, you're not thinking about moving, you're not thinking about any of that stuff, it's great to still periodically update, keep things fresh, updated, because a lot of recruiters they want to reach out to people that are doing, they're at their job, they're happy, because they're the kinds of people that, they're showing that they're gainfully employed, they're really doing, great things. And those are frankly the kinds of people that recruiters a lot of times want to pull. So it's always good to have your ear to the ground and kind of just see what's out there.
For sure. Now I have to ask, because we are live with Gen XYZ. How old were you guys when you created your LinkedIn account? Do you remember?
I guess probably I was at least in my early 20s. I was like 23, something like that, probably.
Okay. Again, I was in college, so I'd say probably 19 when I created mine.
So sometime last year, in other words. No, but mine, I looked the other day, I thought mine is like 18 years old. So 18 years ago. So yeah, so I was
2014. That's when I created my account.
Okay.
So I guess so I was like, what, 24? Yeah.
What does it say? Peter, what does it say for mine? Can you see? I think it shows if you look it up. I think it was 2005. So it's 18 years ago.
I probably created mine when I started working at Four Corner, which was in 2014, actually.
But yeah, I kick myself all the time because I wasn't a big user of it. Even though I had the account, it just kind of sat there. I'd connect to people I knew, but I didn't take full advantage of it. And only recently have I started doing that. And it's really brought so many new opportunities my way. Not job opportunities, because that's not the mode I'm in, but new relationships and collaboration opportunities with others, like I mentioned earlier. So, Peter, I think it's such an important point that you made is don't wait until you need it, right? Yeah. Do it sooner than later. No downside. Right. And it doesn't even take that much time. You can put a lot into it or very little and get significant benefit.
2005. That's when you made yours.
2005. Okay. So I was also 19 when I made my account. Ashley, wow. Turns out.
How old was I in 2005? You know what? Let's not get to that. But let's talk about something important. It's the next question we got in our email, and it's about job boards. Now, I know ZenGig has something really big that was just released. So let's ask the question and then we could talk a little bit about it.
And we could do our shameless plug. Okay, cool.
Yes, we have to. I mean, it's so useful. Okay. Yeah. How can one effectively utilize job boards and company websites in their job search?
So I don't know if this kind of bleeds into another question, but my biggest thing is making sure that your resume is optimized for these job boards. And if you aren't a frequent job, hopper, or you haven't applied to a lot of jobs, or you probably aren't familiar with what an ATS is, an applicant tracking system. And a lot of these job boards kind of work hand in hand with it. So making sure that your resume is easy to read, not crazy formatted, has very clear and concise dates, titles, that type of thing. Contact information. You'd be surprised how many people leave off like their email. That's the best way that I can say it's a simple, easy, low hanging fruit, making sure that's optimized, because so many companies, they'll find your resume or they'll find it through search features on job boards. And then they'll want to, they'll drag and drop it. It'll parse it into their system when they start making notes.
Peter, explain that briefly, because I think there's a lot I've seen on LinkedIn lately. And we've put out content about how to not let the ATS system keep you from being found.
Yep.
But explain parsing quickly, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So when your resume goes into a recruiting agency or an internal recruiter's database, their system will automatically read your resume, and it'll recognize things like contact information, first name, last name, phone number, email. And it's smart enough. It'll look at your jobs and it'll put it in there, and it'll say, this person's got X, Y, and Z skills because it pulled out those keywords on your resumes. So having those, if you're a software developer and you frequently program in Java, and you want to make sure you're like, I want to work in Java. You want to make sure that word Java and software developer and programming and things like that are on your resume, clearly visible. It's easy to tell which jobs those worked at, because while there's a lot of misinformation, I think that recruiters they just, oh, well, the ATS system or their automatic system auto rules me in and out. So a human's always looking at your resume. So while that helps you be found in, searches, I think that it also benefits a human reading it, making it clear to them what you did at a job. Being able to write a resume is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I can write a resume. It's not as common as you think. I've seen amazing resumes, and I've seen really bad resumes where I got to struggle to figure out like what the name of the company they worked at was. So wow. I've seen everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the other ways you can use job boards. So I put in the chat ZenGig job board, yep. So you can go to that. A lot of them have, as we do, a search feature as well. So put in your resume. Like Peter said, make it so the best advice that I can give on that is you don't want recruiters to have to guess.
Yes.
You want it to be very easy to understand who you are, what you've done, what you're looking for. Plain language. Don't be fancy. Don't be cute. Don't use colored resumes. Don't use fancy formats that won't align with the applicant tracking systems. There's so much out there at your disposal. Of course, go to zengig.com if you want to see all of our resume advice. We have a whole resume section with tips by scenario, and we have lots of blogs on it, and there's no shortage of information by just Googling resume advice. But take advantage of the job boards when they have alerts, email alerts. So we have that on our job board where you can put in the keyword, job title that you want, your location, and you'll get daily emails. So a lot of that could be automated, and where you can take advantage of the technology that's there, so you don't have to go and manually search every day or every week. So even if you're a passive job seeker, I think it's, except our employees, but everyone else, you should have those email alerts set up.
Yep.
And you can be notified of jobs even when you're not looking, because you should always be looking. I think that's the message. Keep your eyes open all the time for the next great opportunity. You'd be crazy not to.
Yeah, those automated safe searches are great. A lot of them have, make sure your profile's fully filled out. And then if you've got those automated searches, just kind of running in the background every morning, you're going to get, here's the latest jobs. And if you've done your homework and you've made your resume optimized and all that, they might not even be titles that you've thought of. They're like, you look at it and you're like, hey, I wouldn't even thought to put this in, but it matches me perfectly. And there's so many of those out there.
All right. Speaking of scenarios, I'm going to throw one at you guys. Are you ready?
All right. I'm ready.
All right.
Ready.
I'm going to read it. I had an interview a week ago at a company I really wanted to intern at. It was my first interview, but pretty sure it was a final round because it was directly with the hiring manager. It went great. A lot of signs of getting an offer, conversation of like selling me on the job, saying I'd be a good addition. His last words were, good luck in the next steps of recruiting. Since there shouldn't be any more interviews after that one, what does that mean? Also, I followed up with the recruiter a couple days ago just saying thank you and offering to send over any info-materials that could be helpful. Never got a word back. Kind of freaked me out, and there's been no contact for a week.
Well, there's a couple things to kind of unpack there. I always recommend, I know we've talked about on this, like ask what the next steps are. So if someone said good luck in the next steps, like, I don't want to be, too forward, but like, what are you waiting? What are the next steps for you? Like, what do you need to, is there any questions you have for me? Like, what do you need to make your decision? So doing that, I generally tell candidates, anybody that I've talked to, like, don't ask about sending the thing, like just send it and ask to get the manager's, contact information, or just send it to the, to the recruiter if you really don't have it, and say like, please pass this along. If nothing else, I'd like to, keep this contact. Those are two things right off the bat that I think I would recommend doing.
Yeah, ask for that time frame and be specific if you can. So ask what can I expect next, right? When should I follow up if I haven't heard back? Or when can I expect to hear back? I often recommend going even further than that, especially if it's a sales type of job or you're in a role, you're interviewing for a role where assertiveness is something they would look for, ask for the offer. Hey, have I shared everything that I can with you that would give you reason to hire me, right? When can I start? Now that's bold, and that's not appropriate in every scenario.
Yeah.
But you have a captive audience. You have, you have a chance to clarify anything that you may have not answered very well or solidified something in their mind that would otherwise be a question. You need to strike while the iron's hot. So ask for that feedback to the degree that you can right then on the spot, and then ask about the next steps with it. And like Peter said, always follow up, handwritten note if you can. And then, that's preferred. Get the address of the interviewer or at least the email and send it right away.
And, the truth of the matter, to add to this, is just that recruiters and hiring managers, they're people, they're busy. They might, being on top of their mind like that, you do all you can do. But at the end of the day, there is going to be times where a hiring manager gets caught up on another project and they forget about you. The recruiter is working on multiple roles and they forget about you. You just need to keep that in mind and not always think necessarily too deeply into it. As long as you're doing everything you can, that's, some jobs work out, some don't. So that's the best, advice I can give, I guess, on that.
Okay. Good job answering that on the fly. All right, next one. Again, if anyone's joining in, ask us any questions you have. We're giving out career advice, Gen XYZ style. I'm going to go ahead and read some in the email. All right. How should a new employee approach the first 90 days at a new job?
So I'll jump in on that real quick.
Go.
Like it's still an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is a probationary period. Companies look at it that way. Legally, it's a probationary period where companies will make that decision without having to be tied to certain things, without getting into it too much. But from an HR standpoint, many companies take that 90 days very seriously. So I would tell anyone who's an employee, always act as if you're interviewing for the job, right? Because nothing's guaranteed from one day to the next. But in that 90-day period, it's more important than ever to establish yourself in the best possible way. So that's from a very broad standpoint. That's my answer. Peter, what's your take?
Yeah, I would say learn as much as you can, because that you want to treat it, like Pete said, like it's still part of the interview. It's a tryout period. That is your time also, frankly, where people are not going to expect as much of you in a production. They're going to expect you to learn. They say you go into a new environment. Nobody's expecting the person who's been there a month to know everything, but they do expect you to ask a lot of questions and show show that you're engaged, those types of things. Every person that I've worked with that's brand new, I'm not worried about them, doing a great flawless job right off the bat. I'm worried about them, how engaged they are. How much do they seem like they frankly care? Are they trying to learn? Those are the things that are a lot more important.
And always be prepared to document everything you've learned and ask questions. If you don't understand, and this should be obvious, but I think when people are in a new situation, they want to impress whoever they're working with and working for at that point. But you'll impress them in a much better way, a more meaningful way, if you clarify what you need to up front. So if someone says, do you have any questions? If you do, ask, right? Don't sit on that information and then say, well, I didn't fully understand later. So, Katie wrote, be a sponge. That's a great way to phrase it, right? By all means, ask as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, learn as much as you can. And that's really what that initial period is about. But it's also an opportunity to start establishing what kind of employee you're going to be.
Yep.
And find opportunities to stand out along the way. You just have to get a feel for the culture and make sure that, every situation is so different. So it's hard to give a one size fits all answer to that, other than the stuff we've already covered.
It's more concerning to me whenever somebody doesn't ask questions. Like if somebody's like, yep, I got it. I'm like, I know that was hard. Like, I know you probably don't got it. So it makes me feel better if they're like, wow, this is a lot, but writing stuff down and asking questions, that makes me feel better than somebody trying to put on a brave face and be like, yeah, I understand everything. Like, I know you don't.
I think I have a TikTok meme on that. All right, now let's take a generational turn if you guys are ready.
All right.
How can one handle conflicts in a multi-generational workplace effectively?
How can you handle? Well, I mean, I don't try to look at it as generational. I'm not going to be like, hey, this guy's way older than me, or this guy's way younger than me. I just look at it as like, try to find common ground. That's more of I guess interpersonal thing. Like, if I'm working with somebody who's more experienced than me, I'm going to try and learn from them. I'm going to try and see where we have that that common thread. And if there's somebody that's more junior, I'm going to try and maybe mentor them. So the best thing I can say is just get to know the people on a person-to-person basis, and don't try to make any generalizations that like just because this guy's older, he doesn't know what's going on, or just because this guy's younger, like he doesn't care about his job, that type of thing. That's just my own 2 cents on the matter.
So Ashley, I don't know if you have any context on this because it was emailed, but what does generational have to do with that?
Yeah.
I'm curious, other than that's what we're talking about, but why would someone need to approach that with generations in mind?
I guess, I mean, I've seen like before, like TikToks where like, let's say Gen Z, for example, is getting picked on by the older generation because, they don't really know much, but they expect like to kind of like Gen Z is still so new, but we like to pretty much say we know everything, and then we get irritated when other like older generations are like, you guys don't know how to do anything, kind of thing. So I guess just trying to handle that, or like older generations will get annoyed when a Gen Zer is trying to help them with technology and they're like, no, I got it. Like that kind of like.
Stay humble. That's the moral of the story here is like, you don't know everything, and
exactly.
Try to see where everyone else is coming from.
Just help each other. And I know I've seen people get irritated. Again, on TikToks, there's people getting mad at their bosses and bosses getting mad at the younger generation coming in. But just go in with an open mind. Just know that everyone's learning something new. Learn from each other. So I thought that was
sounds
important.
fair. That sounds good. So easy. Everyone in harmony.
I mean, that's what we hope, but we know that's not always the case. Unfortunately, it's tough out there.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend I don't get annoyed at people, but I do try. You just got to try and remember, like, if somebody's new and you're more senior, like you were new once too, and same vice versa. Like, if you don't know everything, and you don't assume that like somebody older is like doesn't know how to do something just because it's like a new technology or whatever. Try to learn from them, I guess.
That's great. All right, what's next?
Next,
we did get a comment that it's not showing up on our comments that we can share, but I'll read it because I'm looking at LinkedIn on the side. It's from Chris, who wrote, back to what we were talking about earlier, don't include your physical address on your resume. Recruiters peg you to a certain area if they know where you live. If you want a lot of junk mail, leave your email address on your resume. Probably good advice. I suggest leaving your emails off and put your LinkedIn profile. I think that's good advice. For today. And I think LinkedIn recently took off locations, didn't they? Or they do that on a beta and it's only some people. I don't know if it's.
Why is it good to take off locations and email address on?
So email, what he's saying is you don't want to get a lot of spam email. And I think there's potential for that to happen. I would, maybe you can create a different email address if it's one for your job search. That's what I would recommend. I would include an email. You don't want to force recruiters to go. You want to be. You don't want to force the recruiters to go through the process you want them to. So, not every corporate recruiter uses LinkedIn. I know that to be definitively true. So, even though we'll give advice about LinkedIn a lot and say that's where recruiters are, and almost all of them are, you still need to consider the exception. So. Just come up with a fake email address if you want to use one, or temporary, not a fake, but a temporary one that you only use for your job search. That's a great way to avoid that. And then the address part, historically, recruiters using keyword searches would recruit by a radius for the home address. And so I think with remote jobs, hybrid jobs, that's changed a lot on how we recruit. It's still a thing. I mean, it's still very prevalent. It's right up front and center. If you're using a job board for searching, that radius, with the zip code or town, city is very prevalent. But yeah, I'd say leave your address off. If you're when you're proactively sending your resume.
Yeah, especially if you're like really looking for remote type jobs, it doesn't matter. You could leave your city on there if you really want. I'm in Orlando, so Orlando, Florida. That's really the extent of it. But like you said, it's a conscious decision you have to make. If you're really trying to be found by everybody, zip code does. A lot of recruiters are sorting by zip code, especially for any job that's hybrid at the very least, where you do have to go into an office.
Here's the other side of the coin, though, just to consider. A lot of people get annoyed when recruiters call them for jobs that they're not a good fit for, right? For whatever reason, people don't like that. I tend to err on the side of recommending people should be open to any and all opportunities that have potential. But if you don't have your address listed, then you get calls for jobs that are nowhere near what you'd look for. So I think you have to just consider what kind of role you're looking for. If it's remote, no reason to put your address. If you're looking for jobs locally and you'd only consider jobs close to your house, then you do want to be found for those specific areas and have your search be limited. So I think there's reasons to do both.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I didn't know that. So it's interesting.
Well, now you do. There you go.
All right, next question. What would be a good redeemable quality that I can use as a weakness for my job interview?
I always hear so many of those are like, I'm too much of a perfectionist. But with all jokes aside, like that, spinning that a little bit is that's a good, bad quality to have is somebody who is perhaps maybe a little bit slower when they're working on projects because they need everything to be perfect. I think the main thing is if you can identify what it is and you can speak to how you're working on it, then it doesn't really matter as long as because knowing is half the battle. Being self-aware and being like, I know I tend to be, rush through things, or I tend to be too slow because I want to get everything right. If you know that and you can work on it, then it's not really, I would say, that big of a negative. And just being aware of that is what people are looking for.
I wish I had been the one to come up with this, but I can't claim credit. It was a post that I saw from someone else that said, "What's your biggest weakness?" It's like chocolate chip cookies at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, right? Like that would be
working out.
Right. Like, yeah, I skip leg days. I mean, that kind of thing would be. Look, I like bringing some humor into a situation. That's not my favorite question. There's those situational questions, those cliche questions are often overused. We have a blog about it. I'll link it in the comments while we're talking right now. Just to put it, it's about how to answer that specific question. But Peter nailed it. I mean, you come up with something that you can identify and explain how you overcome it. So being aware, that's the point of the question. I mean, that's really what we should be talking about with this is the interviewer is asking to find out about self-awareness and see what you're willing to do about problems, because we all have things that we don't do very well. Identifying those and then being conscious of it's an important thing if you're going to be working with someone. So that's the point of it. But check out the blog, how to answer what is your biggest weakness question.
Yeah, you want to make sure it's redeemable. It's not a complete full negative. You want to show improvement, and that's how you can impress them.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Anything coming in on your side, Pete? Here's the link.
No, it's a quiet day, Ashley. I don't know what's going on.
I know.
We're not normally as charming and entertaining as normal, perhaps. I don't know.
They're burnt
out.
Not
my fault. I'm not the biggest weakness in this. I don't. Maybe it's got to be the millennial.
Yeah, the people were burnt out. They would be watching this. So maybe everybody's engaged and doing their job.
Maybe they're doing their job and they're not having any problems. I guess it's a good thing. Not really. Come on.
Everyone's working. That's it.
Yeah, that's good.
Stop working and listen to us on LinkedIn. All right, what else? What do we have next? We have time. Let's keep going.
Okay. How can an employee demonstrate value and make significant contributions early in their career?
I mean, asking to do whatever you're assigned to. I mean, that's a kind of a general question. Like, how can you make contributions by doing what your job is and doing good at it? You know,
Wow. Peter, that was the most insightful thing you've ever said.
I mean, I was like, that's kind of that one right there. I was like, that's the first question you had. That's kind of general. I think like super general.
You want to make an out of the box contribution. Like, even you want to contribute something that you didn't get asked to do. Like, you could take an education course and contribute what you learned in that education course that you did on your own time.
So here's a couple of things that I recommend and do recommend to people when asked this question. Look around and see who the top performers are and figure out why. Observe them. What makes them a top performer? Talk to those people. Ask them to give you advice. You know, people like to help others, especially younger people or more junior professionals who look up to you. That's an ego stroke. Almost everyone's going to respond really well to that. So ask the top performers what their secret to success is. And it's probably no secret at all. You'll find out. It's probably a lot of hard work, a lot of consistency, a lot of thinking out of the box when the time is right. So you can always ask, and then ask your manager directly, right? What do you look for from me in my role that would help me be the top performer? What's going to differentiate me? What do I need to do to be the best? And then do it. So don't ask those questions and then ignore the answer. Every organization and situation is unique. You never know what you're going to get from that answer. Be prepared for it, but then act accordingly, right? And I know how I'd answer. If any of our employees ask me that question, I offer that all the time. That answer is available. Not everyone's going to want it, of course, right? But you should always find out exactly where you stand and then know what you need to do to stand out. Don't wonder. Don't guess.
Finding out where you stand, that's a really good one. Like just asking your manager, like, hey, what's going to differentiate? Like, I want to do a really good job. What are your top 3 things that you're going to look for? And then you base everything off that.
All right, we have an incoming question. How do you recommend finding a mentor in a remote environment? Thanks for asking. I hope you can answer.
Sure. I mean, LinkedIn is a perfect place for that in a couple of different ways. I mean, find companies that you're interested in, target people from those companies. There's so much that you can find there. It used to be really hard to find people or org charts, things like that. Now it's all right there. So companies you admire, you can start there. Reach out to people, join trade associations or groups on LinkedIn for things that you're interested in. Maybe it's professional, maybe it's personal. Sometimes you can combine personal interests with what will benefit you professionally. I know there's a lot of personal stuff that comes into play on LinkedIn now, but that's a great way to build rapport with people. And if you express interest in what they're interested in, that's just a natural way to establish an opportunity for a mentorship.
Yeah, and even outside of LinkedIn, like websites like Reddit, there's a subreddit for everything, and there's tons of people on there willing to share their opinions and talk about stuff. So if you say you want to learn how to be a programmer, there's a programming subreddit on literally every topic of being one to learning one to getting a career in one, and you can find people on there. There's Discords that are specifically around different careers. Like there's tons of online communities. And I think that's probably going to be your best bet. If you're looking for something in person, there usually, if you live in a major city, there's meetups, user groups for certain, things, HR meetups, marketing meetups, I'm just to name a few. I know at least where we live, there's all of those exist and more. And people go to those specifically for networking and to find mentors and stuff like that. So.
All right.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Peter, because when we hear remote, I by default think remote work, not necessarily in a remote location.
Yeah.
So provided you're not in a remote location, we have lost, just because you don't go in the office every day, doesn't mean you shouldn't seek out live interactions, networking opportunities. So it's not just about LinkedIn. Well, that's just an easy route. I love that you mentioned going after those in-person groups and associations. There's so many. If you look, what is it? Meetup.com? Is that the one that
Meetup had, at least for, here, that's the one I'm most familiar with. Like I said, I've seen digital marketing meetups. I've seen HR meetups. I've seen programmer meetups. I've seen network engineer meetups, like literally all these different groupings, and then larger type, just general networking ones. They're all over the place, at least.
Yeah. And being in the IT space a long time, I mean, there's user groups for every kind of service, tool, product that you have, sponsored by the vendors usually, or resellers, or just people who are just have a deep interest in that technology. And these things are free. It's not like you have to pay for them. So there's a lot of opportunities to network, ultimately leading to mentorships if you're willing to take the step. So there's not, you have to take control over your own career. That's something that ends up coming up almost on every episode that we have in some form or fashion. A lot of these things aren't just going to fall into your lap. You have to seek them out and take action, especially remote. We talked about that even internally yesterday, I think, right? Where we don't naturally have opportunities to go to group things as often as we used to when we were all together. So individually, seek those things out, bring them forward. If you're employed, to your manager, ask to go to a conference, ask to join an association, make it easy to say yes, state your case, bring that forward at the right time to your manager in a thought out way. And you'll be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but I suspect that a lot of times you're going to get a really positive response. I mean, I don't know of many employers who don't appreciate when their team is being proactive and trying to improve, how good of a professional they are, right? I mean, that's a very welcome thing generally.
Yep.
I'll add too, you'll be surprised, but you can find some mentors on TikTok too. You can watch their videos, see their advice that they have to give, and then maybe even DM them and see if they're willing to mentor you. So that's at your fingertips as well.
So Ashley, with TikTok, since you spent so much time there, what if you had to assign a percentage from goofy, silly, humorous videos to serious? Like what? Because I think of still it's mostly goofy, right?
I feel like it depends. It's kind of like a search engine now. So let's just say if you want to go more on the serious side, you just search like career advice or advice for this or this issue, and a bunch of like serious videos come up. And then if you obviously search work life or funny work humor, those videos will come up. So luckily, I think there's a good balance, maybe a little bit more funny. But I think that there's still a lot of users that still put out serious, hardcore advice.
I'm going to go on there and search serious. That's what I can find serious.
And that's another place. I mean, we haven't been talked about it, but other social channels. Since you brought up TikTok, Twitter is a great place. So a lot of Twitter users, I think, are now blending into LinkedIn, at least on my feed. I don't know what's going on there. It's like it's kind of blending together. Twitter's trying to become everything, and
Twitter doesn't exist anymore.
What's that?
I said Twitter doesn't exist anymore.
It's X.
Oh, right. Thank you. See, I'm a Gen. Well. Okay. X. No one says X. Are we going to say X?
No. It's like everyone still calls them tweets. So
what would you say now? If it's not a tweet? What's it called? It's a what?
They're explicatives because it's X.
That's a weird. I mean, Twitter had such a naturally good sort of explanation. Like I send a tweet, and that just.
I was like, I saw a thing about that. It was like, companies kill for that kind of branding to
Yeah. Okay. So Twitter, I'm sticking with it.
All right.
This is my old guy moment. I'm still going to call it Twitter. But what a great way to connect to people there. And I have lots of stories of people I've been able to connect with personally on LinkedIn and Twitter in particular. I can't speak for the other social channels as much. I mean, YouTube, it's like, popular creators, they're probably hard to get access to. I would imagine.
That'd be the only thing. Yeah, there's a lot there. But
I feel like YouTube's hard. Facebook might be a little bit easier because you could join Facebook groups, and there's even groups willing to help you out, give you advice, and You
Yeah.
can learn from other people in that community. Instagram, I don't know. Instagram, maybe not so much. I feel like Instagram's more of like a go buy this kind of platform. Like, we're going to sell this to you.
It's a sales platform.
Influence you to buy this shirt. Not so much career advice.
But you never know. I mean, we know some folks who are Instagram creators who've become that since leaving our world, and I have to imagine they're pretty approachable for if you are looking for insight and help. So take your shot. I mean, social media has made it very easy, right? There's a very low barrier to reaching out to people. No harm, no foul in doing that. The worst that's going to happen is you get ignored.
Yeah.
I will say though, if you do eventually become like a person where you can influence others and help others, and you choose not to, I don't know if that's so nice. Like, if you're that known on Instagram and have all this advice and all this wisdom, and you're not willing to share it and help others,
I don't know. See, I have a different stance on that, because I think it's very difficult to respond to everyone at an individual level.
If you're getting that high of volume, yeah.
That's true.
I mean, you guys know this because my email address has been around for so long. I get roughly 250 to 300 sales emails a day. And it's just not practical to respond to that many. So that's the downside of having that low barrier to access, is a lot of people can take it. And I'm sure the sender of the email, I'm a salesperson, so I know emails get ignored, right? But don't take it personally. I don't think it's a knock on someone for not responding. I think I can only imagine how, like, people with giant followings, they must just get thousands and thousands of messages. So
that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are 48 minutes in.
Are we going to wrap up, or are we going to do one more?
It's up to you guys.
Anything from anyone watching? Last question before we go today? Hit us up. No? We answered everything we had coming in?
We have given all the advice that they can handle.
All right.
Let us know.
I'm going to try to recruit Josh Hammonds. I'll mention his name again for next week. We'll see. It's time to bring on some guests, I think.
So our next topic, should we make it all about burnout, since there's so much to learn about it?
Let's see, because knowing how much Josh knows now, if we don't have him on, then no, I don't. So we'll wait. Let me see if we can lock him up for next Thursday, and then then we'll announce it.
I guess for everyone watching, if you're curious to see if he's coming on, you gotta come and watch.
There you go.
See you
next week. Come back. All right. Well, thanks, and then goodbye for now.
Thanks,
Bye
guys.
for now.